Tell the jumping mule story.
Well, that's a pretty old story. Happened back in the 30s, around 1935 or 6, somewhere along there. I was a new John Deere dealer, incidentally the youngest dealer in the Dallas branch at the time. When I left John Deere, I was the oldest continuous dealer to have in the Dallas branch. Dallas branch covers the Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and Southern California. Anyway, this mule, I had traded for this mule on a tractor, and he could jump out of any fence I had. The corral that I kept my mules in, there was no problem at all. He'd just jump over the fence and graze around. When I fed the rest of the mules, he'd come jump back in and eat with them, and then jump out again. So I got a chance to herd him in a barn, and I put him in a stall in there and halter and a rope on him so he couldn't get away. And I went back to the store, well, sometime the next day, I guess it was. And a fellow drove up to the store and parked out in the middle of the street. Tescola, where my dealership was, had a big wide street, and he parked in the center as well as on the side. He pulled his trailer in there, and he happened to have a neighbor in there at the time in my store talking to me at the time he pulled up. And the neighbor said, well, there's my neighbor with his jumping mule. And he told me all about this mule that he had in that trailer was a jumping mule. He jumped out of it, couldn't keep him at home. And so it wasn't too long till this fellow came in the store and says, hey, I understand you got some mules to trade. And I said, well, yeah, I've got a few. I had 15, 20 down there in a corral, and I told him where the corrals were, and said, I'll meet you down there in a few minutes. Went down there and we took his mule out of the trailer and walked him around. He had a good 3-year-old mule. Everything you'd want in a mule as far as looks go. And I'd say, well, it's a good-looking mule. Anything about him that you ought to tell me that I ought to know before I trade for that mule? And he'd say, well, he's a fast gait. He's too fast for the mule I'm trying to work him with, and which may have been true. But he never did tell me about him jumping. I gave him numerous chances to tell me, and he wouldn't tell me. So we went in there, and I was pricing the difference between every mule I had. Mules that shouldn't have sold for as much as his mule should have sold for. I'd price a big difference. Enough that I knew he wouldn't trade with me after he looked at everything I had over. I said, well, I may have one in a barn. Let me go and look. I went in the barn and led my jumping mule out, beside his jumping mule, and gave him one last chance to tell me that his mule was a jumping mule. He didn't tell me, so I didn't tell him. And anyway, I made a trade with him, a good trade on my part. There's quite a bit of difference. Actually, it shouldn't have been any difference if both of them, neither one of them had anything like jumping to their credit. But he went home happy, and about 3 weeks, I guess, he came back in, came in the office, and he was the cheapest looking man I believe I ever saw. And I knew what it was about. And he said, young fella, if it ever was a mule that could out-jump that damn mule I traded you, it's the one you traded me. He said, I'd have been back earlier only I couldn't kiss it. And I went and traded him another mule and drew a big difference. But on the two trades, I came out real good.
But you had two jumping mules.
But I had two jumping mules. Well,